Hello and welcome to this valuation under IBC. Uh, Prior to this IBC, the insolvency and bankruptcy laws in India, they were multi-layered and fragmented layers, and that recovery has always been an area of concern for the financial sector. Several methods and processes were adopted prior to 2016, but conceptually it revolved around the recovery alone. Initially, the government had framed the SARFAESI Act 2002, which aimed to recover the NPAs of the banks and financial institutions. The Act aims to shut down the unit or company and very rarely work towards the refabricating it. Wiped out Sikh Industrial Companies Act 1985 and the twisting up arrangements of the Companies Act 1956 have not succeeded in recovery of this the financial sectors. Keeping in mind the strain of the market society and to improve the business environment and alleviating distressed credit market, the government introduced the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Act Bill in 2015. In India, before IBC, the lawful and institutional apparatus for managing obligation default has not been in accordance with the worldwide norms. For example, the Presidency Towns Insolvency Act 1909, the Provincial Insolvency Act 1920, Sikh Industrial Companies Special Provisions Act 1985, Recovery of Debts Due to Banks and Financial Institutions Act 1993, and so on. For the first time, the Modi government thought differently with an attitude shift towards the resolution. Rather than recovery and ease of exit was created with the introduction of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016. It came in simultaneously the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India, IBBI, came into existence because there was deemed lack of a properly structured organization to take care of falling companies and their liquidation. IBC 2016 is a unique compendium of laws framed for fast-track resolution or liquidation to release the huge capital that is locked up in companies. The primary objectives of the following are the primary objectives to be achieved by the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016 was the resolution and liquidation in a time-bound manner, maximization of value of assets of corporate persons under insolvency, to promote entrepreneurship, availability of credit, and balance of interest of all stakeholders. With this, out of these 5 objectives, 4 objectives directly deal with the valuation and 1 objective deals indirectly with the valuation. So it becomes very important the valuation has to be in line with the purpose. Accordingly, CIRP and valuation liquidation processes which depend upon valuation only, and significant number of resolutions and liquidation of stressed assets under the IBC proceedings has resulted in the revival of productivity in the form of CIRP and liquidation by channeling the financial resources recovered under the IBC process into the mainstream economy, both of which otherwise could have led to significant wasting. CIRP and liquidation processes are dependent on not only an appropriate valuation for a defined purpose, but also should stand the test of legal scrutiny in case any of the stakeholders, including committee of creditors, insolvency professionals, financial creditors, operational creditors, and such others, are directly or indirectly affected by the valuations, dispute the same in any of all adjudication proceedings under the IBC 2016. Hence, the value conclusion by the registered valuer has to be robust and appropriately established during the IBC proceedings. Evolution of valuation profession has been very static, and journey of this can be seen from first act in 1894, that is Land Acquisition Act of 1894, till recently the section 247 of the Companies Act 2030, Company Valuation Rules 2017, and IBC 2016. The valuation process has undergone a transformational from a mere estimation of the determination of the market value of the to the asset being valued. The role and significance of valuation of assets of different kinds, both in the regulatory and non-regulatory spheres, have made the value conclusions arrived by the valuers very crucial for the stakeholders. Valuation of assets required under the SURFACI Act, that is under Income Tax Act and the SEBI Act 1992, etc., and the large volume of mortgage valuations for banks and financial institutions are considered to be the backbone of the stability of the economic and financial markets of the country, as well as the stakeholders, including the end users. With effect from 1st February 2019, every valuation required under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016 or any of the regulations made thereunder is required to be conducted by a registered valuer, registered for the respective asset classes, that is a valuer registered with the IBBI under the said rules. The end users of the valuation services are demanding more robust valuations to meet their objectives. Who are valuers? The question arises now. And with the recognition of the concept of registered valuers under the Companies Act 2013 read with the IBC 2016, a valuer, it is important to note the difference between the term valuer and registered valuer. As per the international valuation standards effective from 31st January, a valuer is an individual, group of individual or individual within an entity regardless of whether employed or engaged, possessing the necessary qualifications, ability and experience to execute a valuation in an objective, unbiased, ethical and competent manner. In some jurisdictions, it is required before one can act as a valuer. Registered valuer means a person registered with the authority as a valuer in accordance with the provisions of the Companies Registered Valuers 2017, and one has to comply with the following compliances such as Companies Act 2013 and provisions of the IBC 2016, Code of Conduct of the concerned registered valuer organization, bylaws and internal regulations of the registered valuer organization of which he is a member, and compliance of valuation standards, that is internationally accepted valuation standards, compliance of guidelines time to time issued by the authority, and compliance under the other different laws like SEBI, Income Tax Act and other such matter. There are three categories of asset classes to be for the valuers, that is land and building, which depends on the sort of building, its structure, durability, location, size, and etc. And plant and machinery securities of that is the plant and machinery which helps in running the day-to-day business of the organization. And the securities or financial assets. Securities are tradable and financial instruments used to raise capital in public and private markets. And there are primarily three types of securities: equity, which provides ownership rights to holders; debt, essentially loans repaid with periodic payments; and hybrids, which combine both the debt and the equity. The qualifications required accordingly depend upon the category of assets. The valuation and issuance of valuation is basically in a structured manner as far as the standards are concerned, and even the company's rules 2017 say so. That is, the scope and purpose of valuation shall be defined into the registered valuer. Basis of valuation: selection of appropriate valuation standards, selection of appropriate approach, that is market approach, income approach, or cost approach, nature and source of information used by the registered valuers while conducting inspection and valuation, and premise of valuation, highest and best use, orderly, all those things, and departures and deviations occur during the material differences. These are organized in the frontline regulators. Those are called registered valuer organizations, which help in regulating the valuers, registered valuers, and to ensure the aims and principles of ethical standards such as integrity, objectivity, truthfulness, and so on, and conduct educational programs for their upliftment and for the entry level 50 hours educational course, and the subsequent examinations are taken by Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India, and the syllabus is according to what is determined by the authorities, and then conduct a training for issuance of certificate of practice, and monitor the activities of valuer members, its valuer members, after they become registered valuer and come into the practice, and seek their the redressal of grievances against them, and accordingly disciplinary actions. By creating awareness amongst the registered valuers for their responsibilities and accountability for the specific assignments being carried by them through various interactive sessions and continuing education programs, and by scrutinizing the valuation reports of the registered valuers and pay random visits while inspecting the registered valuers to understand and improve the procedures being followed by them for carrying out the valuation assignments as registered valuers, and by creating awareness on modalities of getting the valuation assignments through CEPs, that is continuing education programs. Under IBC valuation, the requirement is of fair value and liquidation value. As per IVS, fair value as the price that would be received to sell an asset or paid to transfer a liability in an orderly transactions between market participants at the measurement date in an assumed transaction. Fair value is computation of an asset value based on an orderly transaction, assuming sufficient time to market and due diligence by an hypothetical buyer. If a fair value of an asset is based on existing use, the assumption must be stated in the report. Similarly, if the asset is being valued for a purpose on a standalone basis and held for sale, then the fair value based on its highest and best use need to be ascertained. If what critically defines value is the basis of value adopted by for any given valuation, all other things being equal. An asset could be considered on a number of bases of value as at the same valuation date. For example, replacement costs and market value, investment value, or forced liquidation value, etc. Whilst all of these values outcomes, they would each yield different valuation results. Moreover, it is critical that valuers analyze the plethora of information available in the market to ensure that it is considerable and appropriately having context to the basis of value which being considered as part of the valuation. So, fair value and requirement asks of a valuer to educate and upskill its members to respond for challenging technologies and evolving market needs. It's the need of appropriateness, transparency, and consistency in valuation of assets is felt more than ever before by the stakeholders. The valuation practitioners of different classes of assets must gear up to meet the professional demands of the fast transformation happening around. They can achieve these by upscaling their professional skills, competency, simultaneously meeting the regulatory obligations as we move towards the full-fledged and comprehensive regulations in the market. Before concluding, it is required that important pillars to ensure the role of self-regulatory system in which is very important in any profession. These are 3 R's, that is redressal, review, and reforms. So evaluation is such kind of a profession where valuer's opinion becomes a key input during a transaction taking place of any kind involving varied clientele of stakeholders. All such opinions may have to go through the crucibles of adjudication. At this stage, there is a scope of redressal of these grievances by making necessary rectifications and justifications for the services provided. The process may lead to avoidable conditions of the deteriorated to get further deteriorated. Institutional interventions in such instances may provide proper guidance to the valuer, which may be not only in the form of grievance being redressed, but also to provide directions and advices for the valuers. Reviews is another area in the same manner, where the valuation assignments being undertaken by the registered valuers. This is a preemptive approach for any later day inconvenience and undesirable conditions. Getting the review may be desired either due to the grievances from stakeholders or for the self-assessment purposes. Reviews done for the purpose of self-assessment is termed as peer review and is beneficial for early rectification and improvements in the works done by the valuers. And lastly, and not least, is the reforms, which is the base for the upliftment or upskilling of a valuer, where through knowledge of his redressal of grievances and the reviews, the path to be taken for the reforms in one's work can follow. And before concluding, I would like to highlight that as valuation has been defined as a craft, we should remember that assessment is the first and most critical tool in crafting valuation. Apart from being qualified, a valuer is required to develop the skill in crafting a valuation opinion, and in order to establish the exclusive demand for a profession, strong foundation of academic pursuit coupled with self-regulation are required to be in place. Therefore, to meet the academic requirements and all these requirements, professional education development program plays an important role. The way forward to this, the profession, can be had by moving towards the act, that is Valuers Act, which is there, and the profession of valuation shall occupy a unique position in the economic and financial uh, spheres. Here I would like to mention that the valuation profession has to go a long way, and the need of the hour is for the entry of the younger generation, and at the school level and even at the graduation level, there is a need to provide the information regarding this profession, which still is missing. And the idea is to create an awareness about such a profession which is of such an prominence or importance, where even the honorable judges in number of cases have pronounced that the judicious opinion of a valuer is vital in resolving such cases. So our message is very clear that it is now our as valuers, our fraternity's turn to move ahead to become such important professionals where we are sought after and looked after to give robust valuation opinions and move towards and work for the benefit of the country as a whole, for the economy, because it is the backbone of the economy. If we talk of $5 trillion economy in coming years, it is the valuers who have to produce or who have to take part in resolving such financial transactions where their inputs of are become very vital and important in such cases. Here the difference between a registered valuer and a valuer the gap has to be reduced, and more and more structured in a structured manner. If valuation and the valuers move forward, this profession is going to take a very, very vital position. Thank you and goodbye.
Hello friends, I am Mayank Mehta and along with me is Meda Shekhar, and we will be discussing today about our topic grievance redressal mechanisms at Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India. So just to start with the topic, I would just stop and highlight the fact what are the objectives of any corporate debtor or a firm. Any corporate debtor or a CD, it has only one objective, that to maximize the value of its stakeholders. Stakeholders can be anyone. It can be financial creditors, it can be operational creditor, it can be workmen, it can be employees. So the ultimate objective of a corporate debtor is to maximize the value of its stakeholders which are associated with it. So once a corporate debtor or a firm enters into a CIRP process, an insolvency professional comes and takes into the shoes of board of directors, and he has to comply with all the laws which has to be complied from time to time and maintain the corporate debtor as a going concern. And to achieve this objective, to maximize the value of stakeholders, which is an ongoing objective, it is very important that an insolvency professional must act in a neutral and unbiased manner without giving any preference to any of the stakeholder. So to ensure that during any CIRP process, that IP works in a manner which is prescribed under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code as well as the regulations specified thereunder, there are specific provisions which enables the IBBI as well as the respective IPS, Insolvency Professional Agencies, wherein the IPs are registered, that they should monitor the performance of IPs on a continuous basis and also can take action for any wrongdoing if required at all during the process. So now we will discuss about the regulatory architecture of IBBI for insolvency professionals. So as per the regulatory architecture, IBBI is being the principal regulator for the insolvency professional and insolvency professional agencies for which the IPs are the frontline regulators for them. So section 217 of IBC code, it actually mandates that any person or a stakeholder who is aggrieved by the functioning or conduct of a service provider, it can file a complaint with IBBI, and it is the mandatory for IBBI to examine those complaints. Further, as we said that IPs are the frontline regulators for IPs, there is a section 204 of the code, and one of their primary functions is that they should redress the grievances of the stakeholders which are filed against their members. So this is the regulatory structure. So now, considering that provisions which has been enabling provisions which has been provided in the code, IBBI during 2017 has notified a detailed grievance and complaint handling procedure, under which there is a detailed mechanism how the complaint should be or grievance should be filed with the board, who can file the same, what is the procedure to be examined, to examine it at the board, and the manner how it should be disposed of. So these regulations actually enable a stakeholder to file a grievance with the against the service provider. So apart from this mechanism, board also receives the complaints or grievances through CPGRAM's portal or other ministries, that is Ministry of Corporate Affairs or any other statutory bodies. So the first thing is, once a grievance or complaints needs to be filed with the board, what it should constitute. So the main thing is, first, filing a grievance, and a stakeholder should reveal his identity. He should clearly prescribe the details of his identity and the details of service provider against whom the grievance or complaint is filed. In addition to that, he should make the details of the conduct of the service provider as well as the details of suffering from his conduct to the aggrieved. In addition, he should also mention that details of his efforts to get his grievance redressed from the service provider, and in the end how this grievance may be redressed and what actions can be taken to redress his grievance. Now we will come to the filing mechanism. What is the filing mechanism? How a complaint can be filed with the board. IBBI, for the ease of the stakeholders, has dedicated platform which is available at the IBBI's website, through which any stakeholders can register himself and fill in the required details and file his complaints or grievances to the board. And in addition to that, if someone is unable to do that through an online portal, the complaints or grievances can be filed by post or it can be hand delivered to the board's office. As prescribed under the regulations, a request fee of which is 2,500 rupees is to be paid along with a filing of complaint, which can be paid through the demand draft in favor of IBBI as well as through online payment. So this, and very specifically to mention, this fee of 2,500 is refundable in case the complaint is non-frivolous. If the board after examination finds that the complaint is non-frivolous, the board may refund that fee. So now the next question is that what is the timeline to file the grievance? Any aggrieved shall file the grievance or a complaint with the board within the 45 days of the cause of action. And if not, if due to any unavoidable circumstances he is unable to file that complaint with the board, he has additional time period of 30 days with the reasons why he can't file, why he was not able to file the complaint within the request period of 45 days. So that is the mechanism to file a grievance. So now the question comes that identity of the stakeholder, which is quite important. While filing any complaint or grievance, it is required that an stakeholder shall disclose his identity along with the details. If in any case any person who is an authorized representative and is filing the complaint on behalf of some complainant, he should also reveal his identity, that he is authorized to do so from the complainant. If in any case any aggrieved he wish to keep his identity confidential, he in the complaint itself he can mention, and the board shall keep its identity confidential unless it is required to process that grievance. So once a complaint is received with the board assigns a unique registration number to each and every complaint, and it also communicated to the complainant within a week of its receipt for the future references and inquiries with the board. Once unique registration is provided, the board, suppose in other cases, receives the similar complaints, the board also club these grievances and complaints to get a holistic approach while examining the complaints. The board doesn't take cognizance of any anonymous complaints or grievances filed with the board. So now after registering the grievances with the board, there is a specified manner under the complaints and grievances regulations in which it should be disposed of. After receipt of the same, the allegations leveled in that grievance or it is to be shared with the request service provider, and service provider needs to give its comment within a period of 7 days. If due to any circumstances within a period of 7 days the same is not provided, it can ask board to give additional period of 7 days to submit his response on the said grievance. Now after the receipt of response from the service provider, the board shall close the grievance within the period of 30 days of its receipt if it doesn't require any redressal. If in any case the board after examining comes to know that okay, some directions are to be provided to the service provider, it shall pass on the necessary communication to the service provider, and it should be done within a period of 30 days only. Now as we earlier mentioned also, that one of the primary responsibility of the IPS, being a frontline regulator, is to manage the grievances and redress the same. So under the same, the board may also forward the grievances to the respective IPS, where IP is a professional member. Once a grievance is provided to the IPS shall handle it as per their model bylaws and intimate the same to the board within a period of 30 days of the receipt of the grievance at their side. Now, on a similar pattern, the board has a detailed mechanism for handling of complaints. As per the grievance, if the complaint is received at the board shares the allegations with the service provider and asks the service provider to share its comments on the same within a period of 7 days. And if required, the board may also seek some additional information from the complainant if required. Now, what can happen during the processing of a complaint? Once the comments of the service provider are received, the board shall independently examine it and came to a conclusion within a period of 30 days whether any prima facie case is there or not. Suppose if there is no prima facie case after examining the allegations vis-a-vis the reply received from the service provider, the board shall close the complaint within the period of 30 days and communicate the same to the complainant. If at all the complainant is not satisfied with the decision of the board, he may request a review also within a period of 30 days. Now, in scenario 2, if during the examination of the complaint, if the board finds that yes, there is a prima facie case and some contravention have been made by the service provider in that particular case, the board under regulation 11 may issue a show cause notice, or board may order a detailed investigation which is to be done in accordance with the inspection and investigation regulations 2017. Now, what will happen to the fee which we have discussed earlier? After examination of the same, the board will come to a conclusion that whether a complaint is frivolous or not frivolous. If the complaint is not found non-frivolous, it shall refund the amount of 2,500 received by the board to the complainant. Now, what we have discussed the both things, what are to be done with the complaints and what has to be done with the grievances. What is the objective of these enforcement mechanism? So you have seen at each and every interval specified timelines have been provided to each and insolvency professional as well as for examination of the board, so that the purpose of examination should not get defeated and redressal or action has to be taken within a time-bound manner. And also, being a IPA, the frontline regulators, there should be effective participation of them during the process. Accordingly, the board is forwarding them the respective grievances to them, so that the objective which has been laid down in the code, that should be met. So, it is very pertinent to mention that in they have enlarged the scope of IPAs during the recent amendment which has been carried out in the last month with respect to enforcement of IPs, that in accordance with 204, the grievances which has been received by the board, that is may be forwarded to the respective IPS for examination of them at their end, and board will monitor the performance and of their disposal by the IPS. And if any dissatisfaction is there from the aggrieved, the board shall examine it independently at their end. So what we have discussed, to summarize that part itself, once a complaint is received by the board decides it needs to be examined by the IPS or by the board, and once it is being decided by, it needs to be dealt with the board. A suitable response within a period of, as we have discussed, 7 days is to be obtained from the service provider. After obtaining the service provider comments, board examine it and investigate the allegations leveled, and comes to a conclusion independently that whether there is a prima facie contravention or not. If there are some prima facie contraventions during the process, board issues either a show cause notice to the insolvency professional or may go for a detailed investigation of the process also. After the issuance of show cause notice, the board provides 15 days to the insolvency professional to submit his response on the show cause notice and a opportunity for a personal hearing before the disciplinary committee, after which the disciplinary committee passes a reasoned order with the suitable directions to the insolvency professional. Now, these are the basic summary timelines which we have discussed, that you have each and every interval a specified timeline is there. There is a period of 7 days which has been given to the IP to submit a response to a grievance and to complete or examine the dispose of the grievance within a period of 30 days, and request for review that should be done within a period of 30 days from the disposal. This is the basic actually statistics, how many complaints or grievances which have been received by the board right from the inception. So you can notice that in the period of 5 years, the board in totality has received 5,940 complaints and grievances and has disposed of 5,751 grievances in the same period, and balance are under examination as of now. Now we will discuss in detail the inspection and investigation by the board, which is the outcome of any complaint or a grievances. Now I will request my colleague Medha to just take it over to that part.
Thank you, sir. So, as my colleague Shri Mayank Mehta ji has explained the detailed complaint and grievance redressal mechanism of IBBI, so the ultimate question is what happens once a complaint is found to be non-frivolous and what does the board do with it? So this is where the inspection and investigation activities of the board come into play. The main purpose of inspection as to why the IBBI examines that complaint from that perspective is because we want to understand if the service provider, and in particular the insolvency professional, he has followed the procedures and the timelines which have been prescribed under the code, the rules and the regulations thereunder. So the inspection will examine if the IP is maintaining the records properly of the entire process, if he is following all the rules and the regulations, and if he has the required facilities and the resources to discharge his duties and responsibilities properly. And most importantly, to take that particular complaint forward, we also inquire into how a particular aspect which has been highlighted in the complaint has been contravened by that particular service provider or the insolvency professional. And of course, the inspection scope can also be increased to any other purpose as may be deemed fit by the board in furtherance of the objectives of the code. So to go into the nitty-gritties of how the IBBI conducts an inspection, the first step is that the board constitutes an inspecting authority. So it issues an order in which 2 or more officers of the IBBI compose an inspecting authority. The order of inspection gives full details of how the inspection has to be carried out. So it will mention the inspecting authority, the names of the officers. It will also touch upon the scope of inspection. So whether the board is examining all the assignments that have been handled by the insolvency professional, or if it is a complaint-based inspection, the scope will mention that the inspecting authority is required to examine that one particular aspect or that one particular assignment of the insolvency professional or the service provider. So once that inspection order has been issued, the inspecting authority will serve a notice of inspection to the insolvency professional. Now, ideally, when the notice of inspection is issued, we give a period of 10 days to the service provider to respond to that notice of inspection with the required records and documents which are required for inspection. So the inspection notice will give a very detailed checklist of what all is required from the insolvency professional, what are the documents that we are looking at, and the timeline as to if he has been meeting each timeline which has been prescribed under the code. Now, the inspection can be carried out on site, where the inspecting authority goes to the office of the service provider. There, the inspecting authority can demand for any document, any record, and all types of assistance from the service provider. And the service provider is duty bound to give all assistance to the inspecting authority. The other aspect would be we can conduct the inspection online. So we call for documents on email, and if we want to seek any clarification from the insolvency professional, we can conduct a meeting online and we can seek his responses therein. So these are the two modes by which the IBBI is presently conducting inspections. Now, the duty of the service provider in these circumstances is to provide all assistance to the inspecting authority. Now, there are two ways by which this inspection process can go forward. The first is by way of an interim inspection report. So once the documents have been received by the inspecting authority in IBBI, they examine each document given by the IP. On the basis of those documents, if the inspecting authority is satisfied that there is gross violation of the provisions of the code or the rules and the regulations, they submit an interim report to the board, and the board makes its opinion whether there has been gross violation of the code or the rules or the regulations thereunder. If they feel that yes, there has been a violation, they will immediately refer the matter to the disciplinary committee of the board. Now, this disciplinary committee will then examine the interim inspection report, and it will pass an interim order. Once the interim order has been passed, giving directions to the insolvency professional or the concerned service provider, the order will lapse on expiry of 90 days. The other route is where the inspecting authority prepares a proper and a complete inspection report, in the sense that it prepares a draft inspection report and it submits a copy of that report both to the board as well as to the service provider. So it gives a period of 15 days to the insolvency professional or the service provider to give his comments or the reply on the contraventions that have been mentioned in that particular inspection report. Once that has been received by the inspecting authority, which is within a period of 15 days, it submits the draft inspection, the final inspection report to the board. In the meantime, when this inspection report has been submitted to the board also examines it and decides whether there is anything more to be done by the inspecting authority further in that draft inspection report. Once the comments and everything has been consolidated by the inspecting authority, it submits its final inspection report to the board. The other aspect of inspection, or I would say the other side, would be the conduct of investigation. Now, the process is very much similar to how the board deals in case of an inspection. We have a constitution of an investigating authority. The investigating authority conducts an investigation, so it sends an investigation notice to the insolvency professional. It gives it some time to submit its documents. On the basis of that, an interim investigation report is prepared by the investigating authority and submitted to the board. The board then examines the report, and if it is satisfied that yes, there has been gross violation of certain provisions of the code or rules or the regulations thereunder, then it will again issue an order. And this then goes to the disciplinary committee. The disciplinary committee will then pass an interim order with appropriate directions to the service provider. And again, just in the case of an interim order, like we discussed earlier, the order will expire in 90 days. So now, once the inspection report has been submitted, the board will take a decision whether a show cause notice is to be issued to that particular service provider or not, or whether based on all the information that has been given, we can close that particular inspection or the investigation. If in case the board decides to issue a show cause notice, in that case what happens is that a 15-day period is given to the noticee. So the noticee will look at the show cause notice, will examine it, and will submit its reply on that particular show cause notice. Once that has been done, the board is again going to refer the show cause notice to the disciplinary committee. Now, the disciplinary committee holds a very important role here, because this is where the principles of natural justice come into being. The disciplinary committee has to dispose of the show cause notice in a manner which is just. So it gives an opportunity to the noticee to appear before the disciplinary committee and explain its case. So the show cause notice gives a very detailed contraventions that have been committed by the IP. So everything will be given in detail, the particular rule, the particular regulation which has been violated by the IP, and against each one of those contraventions, the IP gets an opportunity to present his case before the disciplinary committee. The disciplinary committee then examines and then passes a reasoned order. Now, generally, the endeavor is that the disciplinary committee will dispose of this particular show cause notice within a period of 35 days. Now, like we have said, the objective over here is not to cause undue burden to the particular insolvency professional. So the idea is to take this whole process in a very time-bound manner. So once we have, right from the time where an inspection notice is issued, from till the time that a disciplinary committee order has been passed, we try to ensure that this is all done in a time-bound manner. So just to summarize on that, the time that is provided in the show cause notice so that he can make his written submission is 15 days, and the disciplinary committee tries to dispose of this particular show cause notice in a period of 35 days. So just to take you through how IBBI has fared over the past 6 years, more than 6 years, on how we have been doing. So in terms of inspections, we have ordered about 106 inspections. This is the statistics that I'm referring to for 21-22. And we have completed about 54 and 98 is ongoing. So this data is as on 31st March of 2022. Based on those inspections and investigations, we have issued show cause notices to the tune of 23. The disciplinary committee has disposed of about 16 of those, and balance 18 are under examination. So to conclude, what we can say is that the entire process of grievance redressal and the complaints mechanism is that it all concludes within a prescribed timeline. The board endeavors to do that. And we have laid down each and every step of the mechanism through our regulations, which is the complaints and grievance regulation and the inspection and investigation regulations. And everything has been put down for the convenience of all the stakeholders, so that any aggrieved person, whether it is a creditor, whether it is the management, whether it is an operational creditor of the particular corporate debtor, in fact, any stakeholder should be able to approach the board with their genuine grievance and their genuine complaint, and the board accordingly takes appropriate action and takes it to its logical end. And the process has been made very friendly. The stakeholders can apply online. They can even send it through email or through hard copy to the board, and it is taken cognizance of and disposed of as per law. So thank you very much for joining us today, and we hope that our explanation has been easy to understand, and we hope that the stakeholders would be more than willing to utilize the code and lodge their complaints and their grievances with IBBI if need be. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We all use honey in our everyday life. Normally we buy honey from market, but we don't know the quality of the honey. So we can judge the quality of the honey, whether it is pure or it is adulterated with sugar solution. We can do a simple test at home and you can judge whether the honey is pure or adulterated. For this test, we have to take a glass of water. Now we'll add a spoon of honey. Here you can see the honey is going to the bottom and it is not getting dissolved in the water. So this is pure honey. Now we'll take another glass of water and I'll add another sample of honey. Here you can see honey is getting dissolved in the water. That means this is not pure. This is adulterated with sugar solution. So this is a very simple test to judge whether the honey is pure or adulterated. We all use sugar daily, but we don't know the quality of the sugar, whether it is pure or it is adulterated with chalk powder or something like that. So we can do a simple test at home and you can see whether it is pure or not. So for this test, we need a glass of water. I'll put sugar powder in a glass of water and mix it well. If there is no sediment, if the solution is clear, then we know that this is a pure sugar sample. So here you can see the clear solution. That means the sugar is pure. Now we'll take another glass of water and we'll put another sample. Now you can see the sugar is not getting dissolved. That means there is impurity. The sugar is adulterated with chalk powder. You can see the turbidity. The solution is not clear. And if we keep it for some time, the chalk powder will settle down at the bottom. So you can see the sediment. So this is the difference between the pure sugar and the sugar adulterated with chalk powder. We all know that milk is a balanced diet.
Hello viewers and learners of the Postgraduate Diploma in Environmental and Occupational Health and Master of Arts in Environmental and Occupational Health. Welcome to this session on organic farming and its benefits. Now India, if we see, we are an agrarian country, like we practice a lot of agriculture. And most of us, we have wheat or rice in our, our daily diet, and that is considered as the staple diet of the country. Now, did you ever wonder whether these rice or the wheat, are they adulterated with some kind of pesticides or excessive use of fertilizers have been applied, when growing these crops, and what are the harmful effects and the toxicity that they cause in your human body, in our human body? So this talk this session will actually discuss about these things. And if we see that till the early 1960s, the farmers were actually practicing a form of agriculture which is very much equivalent or very much similar to the organic farming practices that we are following today, without the use of any synthetic fertilizer or synthetic pesticides. Now the farmers over here, they mainly relied on using cow dung, or they used the neem leaves and certain other plant products and the leaf products which have certain biopesticidal property, or those manure which are available naturally in the environment and that they could be applied to the crops. So the farmers relied on the cow dung, then the twigs of the leguminous plants like Crotalaria juncea, then Tephrosia, neem and also Gelugu. So these mulched the fields, plowed for the rice plantation, and also the oil cakes of groundnut and also the castor and neem. All this were used and they were a good source of nitrogen. So that way even the soil fertility would also be boosted. Then, after this came the revolution of using the synthetic fertilizers and the chemicals. So, we have the NPK fertilizers which entered, and here we find the industries that were established in Bihar and especially in Kerala. That was Sindri in Bihar and Udyoga Mandal at Kerala. So here they were using and manufacturing these nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium based fertilizers, and then we would see that, what was the effect and the fate of these metals, the fate of these chemicals in our environment. How long are they staying there, and what are the effects that they have on the environment and also on the human health. So synthetic pesticides also started entering the food chain. For example, we had the DDT, then the endrin, and many other organochlorine and organophosphorus compounds were then introduced. And with the hybrid varieties and the synthetic fertilizers, the herbicides, the insecticides, the production of the rice per acre, definitely that increased up to almost 40 quintals from the 10 quintal. And this was a tremendous victory in tackling the hunger, that is tackling the hunger issues. But then again, this was quite toxic, and then we found that many of the people were actually suffering from various kind of ailments. For example, in the cadmium based toxicity, that was seen that there was some kind of a bone toxicity that caused, and the people had a disease which is called as ouch ouch or the itai itai. So like this, there were many of the case studies, and from many of the countries where the heavy metal toxicity and several other chemicals which induced toxicity in various forms. Synthetic pesticides. So when we talk about synthetic pesticides, definitely they have some negative effects both in the environment, also on the human, animal and also the plant health. So let us see what these are. Continuous use of these synthetic pesticides, this will definitely result in environmental pollution. It will cause a lot of health hazards. It will definitely result in loss of biodiversity. So we are going to lose many of the rich species, endemic species, and sometimes they may be rare and endangered species which are very particular to a country or a particular habitat. Then these pesticides and the chemicals can also be biomagnified in the food chain. So that means that when a bird or even when a fish consumes a certain amount of that chemical toxicant, then it is actually biomagnified as we grow up the food chain. So in fact, if it is in the aquatic ecosystem or in the terrestrial ecosystem, we will find that many of the food chains are connected and they form a food web. And in this ecological system, because we are all interdependent on each other for our food, for our survival. So in that kind of a system, we see that man is at the top of the food chain. So we are getting affected in the process. Now, Rachel Carson, she came up with her publication that was Silent Spring in the year 1960. This opened the eyes of the people, and then we realized what are the dangers, the hidden dangers behind using these synthetic pesticides, also these chemical fertilizers. So then she brought out the effects or the impacts and the harmful effects that these pesticides are causing on the human body, and also the wrong agricultural practices that are being followed just in order to increase the agricultural productivity, to boost the agricultural productivity. Why should chemicals be used in the process? So she brought out this problem and she made the people aware. So basically the environmental movement or the awareness started beginning from here. So DDT is basically a non-biodegradable substance. That means it remains in the environment for a long period of time, for several years, and the remnants could be traced everywhere. The scientists could find them in the soil, in the water, in the air. So they could find them everywhere, and also in the food products. Like even now, for example, when you're using, the brinjal, or when you're using the tomato in your kitchen, you should be aware, are they shining or any kind of chemical has been applied in its processing. So these days we are having organic farming practices that are being employed, and the vegetables and the fruits that have been grown organically. These are a bit costlier, they are much expensive for us to afford, and but still, even if we eat a little of these organic products, farming products, we are still safer and we can have the healthier choices that we make in our daily life. So then there were also studies that say that these pesticides had effects on the kidney, on the liver, and they also caused several types of cancers. So this was really alarming. So the alarm bell started ringing. So then scientists rapidly found alternatives and they advocated integrated pest management. So that was the thing that came up, IPM, that is integrated pest management. Now, then came an era where we have gone for the transition to the organic farming. So now that you have heard, you have known the impacts that these chemicals are causing on the environment and also on the human health. As I told you, there are many carcinogenic activities and substances which are being released in the process. So thereby the transition to organic farming started taking place. So organic, the word itself implies that it comes from a natural product, or it is natural or naturally made, and there is no kind of tampering that has been done in that product. So the use of organic manures can be used, that is from the compost, from cow dung, and ploughing and mulching of the leguminous plants, so that more of nitrogen is also coming for the soil fertility. Several plant-based botanical pesticides were also discovered, and in this we have the neem oil and the neem kernel extracts, which contain the active component which is called as the azadirachtin. So in India itself, if you see, we have different types of the neem trees. You have the Melia azadirac and you have the Azadirachta indica. So they have these active components, or in other words, we can say bioactive compounds, and that are especially useful for repelling the insects. In olden days, if you have seen, or in ancient days, and even now in our forefathers and also our grandmothers, our mothers, they will be using these neem leaves in certain containers, for the storage of grains, especially for grains, for example, rice, or it could be certain type of cereals. In the same way, they also use the dried leaves of the curry leaf, that is the moringa family, and these kind of leaves. So they all contain some kind of the anti-repellent activity, or they are working against the pest. So you will not find the pest in your container when you use such things. So the karanj oil and the leaf extracts of the adathoda and garlic buds, aqueous extracts of these garlic buds, they are also quite effective in dealing with these pathogens. So thereby the farmers have now started growing their crops by using the natural farming techniques, and there is a growing awareness in India to cultivate. More and more arable land is there, but still only some of the states and some of the farmers are actually going in for the organic farming practices because of the advantages and also the disadvantages in terms of their productivity and so on. So they can use the green manure, the compost, then the vermicomposting, then biopesticides, and also microbial based pesticides. This includes the microbial, for example, it can be bacterial, viral, and the fungal based. That is Bacillus thuringiensis, Pseudomonas aegle, and also Trichoderma virdi. Now, another important thing which is being employed in the organic farming in several states is the Jivam Rhythm. So, Jiva Amritam, that itself is giving you life. Amrit, or you know that it is nectar, and Jiva is life. So, that is something, a nectar which is giving life. So, this was a recently designed concoction in several parts of Kerala, and that is also called as the Ramabanam, and it is made from jaggery, from ginger extracts, from the cow milk, the curd that is obtained from the cow milk, then the cow dung, the cow urine, and asafoetida or hing. So all these ingredients are mixed, and then they are incubated and they are fermented, and in this there are some good bacteria, like for example actinomycetes, which will convert this mixture into a very active compound, and then that can be further diluted and sprayed on the crops. So here you see that all the products which are there in this Jivam Rhythm, they are natural, they are organic, and that will not do any harm to the environment, to the crop, and also on consumption by the human beings. For us also that will be very safe. So there are also several bioactive compounds that have been isolated which have the pesticidal or the which have pesticidal activity. So these have been successfully isolated and commercialized. For example, we find the azadirachtin from neem, where I give you the example, the different type of the neem trees which are found. Then we get the pyrethrin from the flower pyrethrum. We have the garlic, turmeric, and the rosemary. These are also used in many type of these compounds which can be used against the pest. And then we also have ginger and thyme. So even when we have a flu, when we have a cold, or when you're even not feeling well, you have a slight headache, it's very nice to have, a ginger tea or Ocimum sanctum, that is even a tulsi chai. And these days you find also tulsi, muleti, chamomile. So many compounds are there which are naturally detoxifying your system. They are detoxifying your liver, your kidneys, and so on. So natural products, they have their own benefits, and when these are sprayed on the crops, then that also has a lot of beneficial effects. So thereby organic farming is extremely beneficial, and it is good in order to use the organic compounds for our health and well-being. Another thing which I would like to emphasize is the Panchagavya. So this also, Pancha itself in Sanskrit, it refers to as 5, and it means the blend of 5 products that are obtained from the cow. So in several states in our country, in India, we are using this Panchagavya, and in this you see how the farmers, in this figure you can see how the farmers have mixed the different components which are obtained from the cow, like cow ghee, cow milk and so on, and then it is allowed to ferment. And this Panchagavya mixture, that is supposed to be an efficient plant growth stimulant, and it will also enhance the biological efficiency of the crops, and the nutritional quality of the fruits and the vegetables is also highly improved. So it enhances the nutritional quality of the fruits and the vegetables. So therefore, Panchagavyam and the Jivam Rhythm, there are differences between both of them because both are explained. So in Panchagavyam, this has the extracts of the cow dung, the cow urine, the curd, the milk and the ghee which are obtained from the cow products, and that has more efficiency than the Jivamritam in connection with the removal of the pesticides. And the Panchagavya can be given to animals as well, but the Jivamritam, this can be given only for the plant and the trees. So like this, there are several innovative methods, even in Bundelkhand, in Madhya Pradesh and several other states of our country. You know, the farmers have innovatively designed, and they have been self-motivated, and they conduct their own small workshops and training programs where they are educating their own farmers in their own, Kisan unions and clubs. So this way, each and every small holding farmer, they get an idea as to how they can naturally eliminate the pest from their garden or from their area, this agricultural land. Now, as I told you before, for about 90% of the Indians, wheat and the rice, they form the staple diet, and they are exclusively the staple food. So the encouragement of organic farming in a country like India, this will be really meaningful if this process is being applied for rice and for wheat. Organic farming, now we come to this, that it is an agricultural system that uses fertilizers of organic origin such as compost manure, green manure, bone meal, and here we emphasize on the crop rotation. And this originated early in the 20th century in order to, actually it was challenging the practices, and also rapidly it was adapting to the changing farming practices at that time. So these organic farming practices, they are internationally regulated, and then it is legally enforced by many of the nations on the standards set by the International Federation of the Organic Agricultural Movements. And this international organization, that was established in the year 1972. Now let us come on to the definition of organic farming. So how do we define organic farming? This is an integrated farming system that strives for sustainability, the enhancement of soil fertility and biological diversity, while, with rare exceptions, prohibiting synthetic pesticides, antibiotics, synthetic fertilizers, genetically modified organisms, and the growth hormones. So from this definition itself, we get to understand, we know that organic farming is striving for the health of the environment and also for the health of the human being. So that means it is beneficial, it is good for our health. Indiscriminate use of these chemicals, that has led to several health and the environmental problems, and it has prompted the farmers in order to go for certain innovative techniques. Now, one of the most valuable benefits of the organic farming, that is the improvement in the soil quality, and you can really see that, and this can be expressed in terms of the chemical, the physical and the biological properties and their interactions. This was given by Otis and Hugh in the year 2007. Now, while the conventional agriculture, that can use a lot of these synthetic and chemical-based fertilizers and pesticides, but the organic farmers, they use the natural pesticides and the fertilizers, and an example of a natural pesticide is pyrethrin. So where do you get this from? We get this from it is naturally obtained from the flower chrysanthemum. And this chrysanthemum also, you have seen, you find them in different colors in your garden or in the park. So that the chrysanthemum itself, that has a lot of these properties. Now, in the same way, you might have seen in your own gardens, around some plants you find that the insects or the pest will not be hovering around. So that itself should give you an idea that this plant has some smell or some bioactive compound that the insects are not able to come near them, or that even when they come near them, something is happening to the nervous system or the respiratory system of that insect. So there are a lot of the plants and the flowers we have in nature which is a boon for mankind, and we need to harness these things. So the principal methods that are used in organic farming, they include the crop rotation, green manures and compost which is being used, biological pest control, and a little bit of mechanical cultivation. So all these measures, they use the natural environment to enhance agricultural productivity. For example, the legumes or the leguminous plants, they are planted in order to fix the nitrogen into the soil, and natural insect predators are also encouraged. So what are the benefits of the organic farming? It is immense due to its varied advantages over the practices of chemical farming techniques. The animals are reared under the organic farming. They are healthy. Okay, you will see that they do not have any kind of disease, and it is safe to drink these products. Now, these products, for example, now these days we even have the app-based solutions in order to purchase your milk, or in order to purchase your paneer and also ghee and also curd. Okay, so all these you are getting from the organic farm based sources, and you know the source from where you are actually getting your stuff. I mean, getting your milk, or whatever food amount that you want to eat. So these products are basically chemical free, and they are designed by people, and they are the eggs which are hatched from these poultry farms. Okay, these farms, the eggs are also allowed to pasture naturally. They are not allowed to grow in caged environments, and then they have a natural meal. For example, that can contain turmeric, then that can contain ashwagandha, that can contain tulsi, all which is good for the chick and for the hen to lay very nice and healthy eggs. And in the same way, they are also chemical free. So such type of organic farming products are chemical free, and they are highly nutritive, and it also helps in the conservation of our natural resources. Now, what is the state of the organic farming in India? In the Northeast, if you see, the organic farming is really a big boon, and big boost is there over there. And the organic industry has sustained an annual growth rate of 50 to 60% in their production. Almost every state in the country, they produce some kind of organic product. So that's why you find an organic stall in our country where you can actually get everything, right from your organic clothes, whether it is jute, whether it is soy silk, jute silk, coir, and also various type of the food products, especially the cereals and also the rice. So all this you are getting it sourced from the organic farms from different states of our country. So Sikkim is declared as an organic state in our country, and this is in the Northeast, and the maximum area under organic farming is in Madhya Pradesh, which is 52%, right? Half, like 50%, followed by Maharashtra and then Orissa. The crop diversity. So the organic farming also has different benefits. That is, it encourages the crop biodiversity. Planting a variety of the vegetable crops that will support a wide range of the beneficial insects, the soil microorganisms, and other factors that add up to the overall farm health. Also, the crop diversities will help the species from going extinct, because there may be some species in nature. Like today, we are all there, and we know that we have a tulsi plant and also several species. There are different species of the same, and which have different beneficial effects on the a human being, and or in fact we can say that they have a lot of medicinal effects. In the same way, thyme and many other plant and the leaf extracts, they have a lot of good effects. It may not be only in the form of drinking the green tea, but it can also be applied for the hair. They can be applied for the skin, for giving a natural glow and toning your skin and so on. So these species, they are endangered and they may go extinct. So such kind of the crop diversity practices which are being employed in the organic farm and organic farming techniques, that will help protect and conserve such rich natural resources. The soil management is also an important aspect. The natural breakdown of organic matter driven by the mycorrhiza and the earthworms, this releases nutrients which are available to the plants throughout the growing season. So by reducing the fuel intensive tillage, less soil organic matter is lost to the atmosphere, And this has an added benefit of the carbon sequestration, which reduces the greenhouse gas emissions, and it also improves the soil structure. Weed management. So you've often seen in the agricultural farms where weeds pose a lot of nuisance when you're growing the staple crops and so on. So managing the weeds also, that also can be done organically by using certain natural alternatives. So the organic weed management, that will promote the weed suppression rather than weed elimination by enhancing crop competition and the phytotoxic effects on the weeds. So farmers are nowadays integrating cultural, biological, mechanical, physical and chemical tactics in order to manage the weeds without using synthetic herbicides. Weed control management practices and techniques. So we can detail upon these. Tillage, for example, can be done. Mowing and cutting, that is removing the top growth of the weeds. Flame weeding and thermal weeding can be done using heat in order to kill these weeds. And mulching by blocking the weed emergence using organic materials. So some naturally sourced formulations, for example, the corn gluten meal, the essential oils, then the bioherbicides, this also can be used. And then the weeds can also be controlled by grazing. In many of the rice farms, you would have seen that ducks or geese are introduced in order to graze on these. So they are getting their food and nutrition also, and in the same time by grazing in such agricultural land, they are also removing these weeds which are causing a nuisance. So this way we can have different types of the techniques organically, naturally, and by innovation, and this will help the address the issue of sustainability and sustainable development. Now controlling other organisms, for example chloroxylon, this has been used by many of the farmers in Chhattisgarh in India, and rotating the crops to different locations that can also interrupt the pest reproduction cycles. Then planting the companion crops, pest repelling plants that can discourage and divert the pest, and using insect trap to monitor and control the insect populations. Livestock, as I already told you about the milk that can be sourced from the organic sources. In the same way, healthy cows, that means that is giving you a healthy output, you are getting healthy products. So antibiotic therapy or giving any kind of antibiotic is actually prohibited in organic farming, and the organic farms attempt to provide animals with natural living conditions and feed, and their feed is purely organic and they are pastured. Naturally, they are allowed to grow in the natural environment the way they want to. So the products are also nutritious and they also have a high protein content. So although the genetically modified organisms, these are excluded from the organic farming, there is concern that the pollen from the GMO farms, they can actually enter the organic farm. So that is there, and so we need to be quite careful about these issues. Now there are also, finally coming to the organic standards and the certification, we have the national as well as the international standards. So in the national, we have the national program for the organic program. And then we also have the National Organic Program of the US. Then the international standards and the Codex Organic Standards. These are all accepted by the organic production countries. So all these standards are actually listed in the program, for example, in addressing crop production, livestock, beekeeping and apiculture, in the aquaculture production, food processing and handling, and any other category of the products that the NAB, that is a national accreditation body, may include from time to time. Now this is the India Organic logo, and you find that this has to be there, and this establishes that the product that you are purchasing is truly organic, and they are hallmark of the organic products produced as per the NPOP in India, and all the colors, they signify the role of organic farming in preserving the nature and the natural resources. So the organic farming for the long term also, we find that they are very good for the soil fertility and the soil health, and ultimately for the planet and also for the human health. Now this is the case study which India's first 100% organic state. In January 2016, Sikkim became the first state which is 100% organic, and all the farming in Sikkim is carried out by the without using synthetic fertilizers and pesticides. Concluding, I would like to give you one more slide where the ecosystems or organic farming ecosystems are boosting the multifunctionality of ecosystem, and it has 50% lower global warming potential and 85% reduced aquatic ecotoxicity potential per hectare. So organic farming is basically in a nascent stage in many parts of our country, but still farmers are trying to adapt with these changes and they are trying to cope up with the same, and many of the states and many of the farmers are getting benefited by certain type of the training techniques. Concluding this talk, I will discuss about one case study, that is R.C. Dagar's farm, which is in Sonipat in Haryana. And here, this is a farmland in Akbarpur in Bharota village in Sonipat. And here they practice integrated organic farming. Here you can see him, and this actually came in the Center for Science and Environment report, Down to Earth. He practices beekeeping, dairy management, biogas production in the farm, water harvesting, composting, and all the vegetables, the fruits, the mushrooms, the flowers also, everything is grown organically in his farm. So here we find even the leftover paddy crop that is being used. People don't know what to do with it, but he is converting that also into vermicompost, and the gobar that is got from the cow dung, that is also fed into the biogas plant. So waste is also converted into energy, and that waste coming from the biogas plant, that is going into the compost pits. And he also has the solar powered farms, and he has also set up the Kisan welfare clubs. So here you can see a farmer who has made a difference in his state for his people, and he goes around collecting people and does his best as to how to deliver and educate the farmers about such innovative techniques and using organic farming for the health and for sustainability and sustainable development. And I hope all of you learners and viewers have had a good understanding of this subject on organic farming and its benefits that it has on the environment and human health. Thank you for your patient listening.
आसाम की विशालता केवल ब्रह्मपुत्र नदी तक सीमित नहीं है, बल्कि यहाँ के सांस्कृतिक वातावरण में भी दिखाई देती है।
यही वह कामरूप है जिसकी गाथा पौराणिक कहानियों में भी पाई जाती है।
मैं कामरूप हूँ, मैं साक्षी हूँ उस पौराणिक काल का। प्रभु महादेव की करुणा से मुझ में ही कामदेव को नया जीवन मिला, इसलिए मैं कामरूप हूँ।
ऐसी ही एक पौराणिक गाथा जुड़ी है आसाम के गुवाहाटी में स्थित मां कामाख्या देवी के मंदिर के साथ।
प्रतिदिन यहाँ हजारों की संख्या में श्रद्धालु भक्त मां कामाख्या के दर्शनों को प्राप्त करने के लिए समस्त संसार भर से यहाँ पर आते हैं।
जिस पहाड़ी पर मां कामाख्या का मंदिर स्थित है उसे नीलांचल पहाड़ कहते हैं। वर्तमान में मंदिर तक पहुंचने के लिए अति उत्तम मार्ग की व्यवस्था है,
परंतु एक समय ऐसा भी था जब लोगों को पत्थरों की सीढ़ियों पर चढ़कर वहां तक पहुंचना पड़ता था।
भक्ति के साथ साथ यह एक पर्यटन स्थल भी है। यहाँ के स्थानीय निवासी इसी पर्यटन से अपनी आजीविका भी चलाते हैं। हर वर्ष आषाढ़ माह में मंदिर के द्वार कुछ समय बंद रखने की परंपरा है, जिसे अम्बुवासी कहते हैं। अम्बुवासी के दौरान देश भर से लाखों भक्तजन यहाँ पर आकर रात बिताते हैं।
मंदिर खुलते ही भक्तजन मां कामाख्या के दर्शन कर लेते हैं। अम्बुवासी प्रवृत्ति के समय यहाँ अत्यंत भव्य मेला लगता है। भक्तों की ऐसी ही भीड़ नवरात्रि में भी दिखाई देती है।
Hello learners, welcome to today's online session. Today I'm going to talk about one of the important points concerning one of the important courses, which is entitled DCE2 Feature Writing in English. Before I begin talking about this course, which is entitled DCE, Feature Writings, let me give you an overview of which this course is taken, which I would say program this course is taken from, this is taken from a program which is entitled DCE, Diploma Course in Creative Writing in English. Okay, it is also known as Diploma in Creative Writing in English. And this is in fact a diploma course, And today I have selected a very important topic, okay, which is feature writing, And this is very relevant today also, and that's why I opted for this course, okay. So when I talk about DCE, see, Diploma in Creative Writing in English, has got its own objective, it has got its own aim also. And the main objective of this course is to provide an understanding, skills, professional knowledge about the art of writing, and also to develop the creative ability of those who are interested in making a professional career as a freelance writer, So this is about, Diploma in Creative Writing in English. When I look at this course, Diploma Feature Writing course, and Diploma in Creative Writing English, when you look at the curriculum is structured in such a way, as to impart instructions, okay, and in progressive stages, so as to ensure that a learner can assimilate information about a writer's art and develop his or her creative ability, and this program has, its own, some incentives also, its own technicalities also. And these technicalities, when I talk about technicalities, this program includes training in writing skills in relation to, feature articles, okay. I mean, in feature articles, we'll be talking about, women's issues, okay, book reviews also, writing short stories, scripts for TV, radio, and writing poetry, So this program is, intended at training, giving kind of a training in, writing skills, okay, writing skills, okay, includes, you can say, writing feature writings, okay, feature articles, writing, short stories, writing poetry, and also, it talks about like writing novels, novella also. So this is a kind of a program, I think, which is of relevance to today, and most of the students would benefit out of this course. And let me tell you that this is going online also. I think learners would be benefiting out of this course. So far it was in audio distance learning mode. Now it has gone online. So very recently it will go online from 15th July onwards. So now when I'm talking about Diploma in Creative Writing in English, as I told you, today, particularly nowadays, it has got its relevance. And there are a lot of people, who are, getting fascinated by this course. And there has been a high number of, enrollment for this course also. So that's why I opted for this, to this course, okay, which is feature writing, I'm going to talk about feature writing, okay. So now, when I talk about this diploma course, this diploma program, in fact, diploma program has got 6 courses. And out of 6, there are 2 compulsory courses. So those 2 compulsory courses, okay, are, entitled, first one is DCE1, which is entitled, General Principles of Writing. And secondly, DCE6, which is about a project writing project. So these 2 courses are compulsory courses. So in this program of Diploma in Creative Writing in English, there are 6 courses, and out of the 6, course number 1 and course number 6 are compulsory courses. And there are then, apart from these 2 compulsory courses, there are 4 elective courses also. So let me briefly talk about those elective courses. See, you have to select any 3 elective courses out of these 4. DCE2 is entitled Feature Writing, DCE of 3 is entitled Short Story, DCE4 is entitled Writing for Media and Radio and Television, and DCE5 is entitled Writing Poetry. So as you can see from the titles, how this program is going to teach you about not only writing feature articles, but also about writing short stories, writing poetry. So it's going to really give you kind of a full training to become a full writer. So those of you who are interested in becoming a writer, who are not in a position to understand as to what exactly they should do, they should in fact enroll and get registered for this course, because this program is going to give them a kind of a wing, with the help of which they can fly in the sky, sky of this world, So this program is very, very important. Now, when you look at, before I go talking about feature writing, see, you must have, all of you must have read a newspaper, So what do you look at, when you open a newspaper every day, suppose in the morning, okay? Do you think that all the readers just look for the news? I don't think so. Okay, I don't think so. So what are those things which you look for, when you just in the early morning, when you open newspaper, you may be looking for news. But is it, necessary that all the readers who have just opened the newspaper would be looking at news? Not necessarily. Since we are living into obviously digital era, I would say, and this cybernetic world, and we are getting fascinated by digital tools, digital tools. So we are overwhelmed with a lot of news coming from even from mobile phones. You are getting a lot of news. So I don't think people read newspapers only to get news, because they are overburdened with news. Okay, they get news from their mobile, different sources of media. So therefore when you look at newspaper, you find that newspaper not only gives you information about news, but it also talks about feature articles. You'll find that newspapers will deal with feature articles. Newspaper will be filled, we can say, some sports activities, and you will be also finding I would say articles, editorials in the newspaper. In the newspaper also you'll find letters to the editors, photos, captions, advertisements would be there, informations also required for general purpose of the day-to-day life. So these are the things which you find in a newspaper. Why I'm talking about all this is that, see, newspaper does not necessarily provide you news. We readers do not look at the newspaper only to get news. We also try to get extra information, okay? And feature writing happens to be one of those important, aspects of newspaper. Newspaper deals with feature writings, okay? So let me now tell you as to what is meant by, feature writing, And so when you look at the feature writing, there is objective behind it. What is the objective of see, feature writing, deals with, different kind of an approach. It has got different approach. It's different from story writing or story news, okay, which is found in a newspaper, because when you try to compare story news with feature writings, though both are part of newspaper, but feature writing has got different aspect to it, has got different approach, different features. The main objective of a feature writing is to to humanize, to add color, to educate, to entertain, to illuminate, okay, and mostly what you find is that this feature writing, mostly it is intended at entertaining the readers with information and knowledge of their interest, and also it provides the readers the pleasure of reading. So see, the main intention, or I would say the main purpose of a feature writing, is to add different color to the news story. News story is a traditional way of giving information to the readers. So if you go traditionally, then nowadays people, even students, learners would be very much bored by reading all this news every day in the newspaper. So they would be looking at different articles which really add a new color to to those, I would say news stories. And these are the things which you find in the feature writing. So as I told you, when you while talking about objective, that the main objective of a feature writing is to add different color to the traditional way of writing. It adds a new dimension to the traditional way of writing news story. It provides readers the pleasure of reading, and this happens to be one of the important objectives. Now feature writing can also be used to explain things, to expand or even analyze previous news stories. It helps, so you can well understand and how it helps to expand, to analyze previous news stories. And it also can be used to prepare a profile of a picture, even to document a trend on practice in a society. So well, you can understand that feature writing has got a different kind of aspect to it. It adds a new color to the traditional way of writing. It really provides entertainment. So if you look at the main objective, main purpose of a feature writing, the main purpose of feature writing is to provide you entertainment, to provide a kind of an amusement, and that is what people are looking for. So when you read a newspaper, traditionally in a traditional newspaper news story, when you go through it, what happens is that news story deals with factuality, factual events. So people get bored by reading all those things. So when you give a different kind of a narrative into a newspaper, which may come in the form of a feature writing. Supposing you're writing about a sports person, so while writing about a sports person, you put in their pictures, you write about some of the interesting points about the life of that sports person, and some of the interesting things about his life. So that is what really would make the article to be very interesting, and that is what would fascinate the readers also. So there you find that feature writing is different from traditional way of writing articles. So while talking about this usage, this is very much highly immensely useful, I would say, feature writing. And this is a new form of writing, I would say, in the field of journalism, which people have been really looking for. They want to learn about these feature writings. Now let me talk about the characteristics. What are the characteristics of feature writing? Because you got to understand how this feature writing is different from other ways of writing. So when you talk about the characteristics, feature writing provides some color to otherwise I would say factual style of reporting in the news story, and it really gives a kind of a focus on stories of human interest only, and this happens to be one of the important aspects, providing you can say stories of human interest. The human interest angle really makes the readers enjoy reading them. See, so what you've got to understand in this about while talking about the characteristics of feature writing is that there is a human aspect to the aspect which is involved into it. So you are writing an article which is of human interest to the people, and people really are finding it very interesting. This article is becoming very appealing to them, and this is a kind of a new dimension which is present in feature writing, and that is what is really making this feature writing to be having a distinctive characteristics of adding a human interest to the article which is being written by a writer. Now, while talking about characteristics, feature writer should also, it is expected that a feature writer should have a greater command over language, because a news story writer may not have greater command because he has to give, talk about the factuality, factual events, and the linguistic creativity of the writer is of most consequence, of most consequence to a feature writer, and choice of words in can say in such a way that it should add color to the facts. And these are three important things you can say. So the feature writing writer has to have a greater command over language, linguistic ability. He has to have a linguistic ability with the help of which he would be adding different kind of techniques to writing, so that that feature writer feature article becomes very interesting for the reader, So these are new dimensions, new characteristics of, feature. And then choice of words is also very important, What happens in news story? I mean, when you look at the traditional way of writing, in traditional, when you go through traditional articles, you find that traditional articles are filled with, factual events, factual, incidents and factual descriptions. But when you read a feature article is different. Why? Because there is a lot of, creativity involved into feature writing. Lot of creativity, lot of choice of words are there. The feature writing article has got writer has got freedom, lot of freedom, liberty to expand, you can say, to the extent he or she can do, So there is a lot of flexibility, involved in feature writing, Let me further talk about other characteristics of feature writing. Now, feature writer, should also present the facts in such a language which is entertaining for the readers to read, and as long as it can be accommodated in the newspaper column, See, as I was telling, So here what is happening is that, language plays a very important role. So feature writer, has to present, facts in such a language, that the article becomes very interesting for the readers, you can say. And there is no word limit as such, I can say. And there is no limit of words, you can say, for the feature writer. So he or she can expand the article, to the extent he or she wants to, So there is no limit of words as such, And there is a lot of flexibility, as I told you, a lot of creativity involved, linguistic creativity particularly is involved into it. The feature writer is free to write to the extent he she wants, So a lot of flexibility, a lot of freedom is involved. Why? Because this flexibility, it is flexibility and also freedom which really gives kind of an impetus, gives kind of a inspiration, to the writer to write freely and make the feature article, feature writing to be very interesting, because the main purpose of feature writing is to entertain the reader. So the feature writer, always tries to, make the article very interesting, so that, readers, really find it very interesting. And that's how it will become different from, this news story. And moreover, there is no standard as such for feature writer. There is no standard or no standard format. There is no standard structure as such, and the feature writer is free to write according to his or her wish. He has a greater freedom also. He or she has a greater freedom. See, when you're talking about structure, everything has got structure. Even news stories, they will be having proper kind of a pyramid. So they will involve a kind of a 5 W questions and 1 H questions. So there is a proper structure, for writing news story. So when you look at this feature writing, there is no particular format as such. So there is a lot of flexibility involved in, a lot of creativity involved in, a lot of liberties there. So feature writer, may write, you can say, the way he or she wants to, So a lot of freedom is there, So has a greater freedom, as I already talked about. So this is the quality which really makes feature writing to be very distinctive writing, distinct form of writing, Now feature writer has got greater flexibility, as I told you earlier also, and it is the flexibility, in fact, which really makes the writer to be more creative, and imagination has a greater role to play, So flexibility, as I told you, flexibility, when you talk about flexibility, flexibility has got deep connection with, freedom, creativity. The more free you are, the more, creative would become, because you will not have somewhere in your consciousness about this word limit or proper structure as such, you can say. Let me give an example. When you look at, the poetic composition of 18th century poets, which was known as New Classical Poetry, New Classical poets, they had to follow, very well structured poetic composition. okay, which was known as, suppose, a heroic couplet, okay, or blank verse, So they had, sort of, you can say, a limit, okay, under which they were supposed to write. So they could not express their feelings, imaginations freely. So their creativity could not be, explored, okay, to the extent, readers would be expecting, So same thing applies here also with the feature writer. So feature writer here, on the other hand, has got a lot of flexibility. And if he or she has got a lot of flexibility, then he or she would be having, you can say, a lot of creativity also involved into it. And with the help of creativity, the feature article would definitely become very fascinating, very interesting to the readers. Now, let me give you kind of a distinction between news story and feature writing, and it will help you to understand as to how feature writing is, different from news story. A news story is kind of a traditional way of writing, So let me talk about the difference, See, news story talks about, factual things, you can say. It deals with facts, you can say. Feature writing also does talk about factuality or fact events, but not necessarily to the point, okay. News story has got two components, okay, like the lead and the body. It has got two components, okay. On the other hand, feature writing has got three components. One is lead, the body part, and third is the conclusion. Climax is involved in the lead in the news story. On the other hand, in feature writing, we don't find climax. Climax can be anywhere in the story. Not necessarily it is involved in the conclusion, in introductory part, News story is based on, as I told you, a proper structure, which deals with, 5W questions or 1H questions, okay, which are supposed to be answered, So, whereas with feature writings, this, does not apply at all. And the highlights of the story is given always in the beginning in the news story. On the other hand, feature writing, what happens is the writer does not follow any such rules as all. So, given the facts, just now I talked about the distinction between those news story and feature writing. You'll find that news story writers have got to follow certain rules, certain procedures, because they deal with facts. If they are describing any incident which has happened, they have to give the facts. Suppose there is an incident which took place on the road. So they are talked about, you can say, how it took place, you can say when it took place, 5W questions. So 5W questions and 1H questions, how also, okay, who, what, where, all these things, okay. So these are, you can say, part of news story writer. On the other hand, when suppose there is a feature article which is published on the same incident which was written by news story writer, so the feature writer would add a new dimension to the same incident by talking about the life, by talking about the characteristic, by talking about the other imaginative things about the incident as to what would be happening, okay, in the minds of the families, okay, families of the persons who met with the accident, okay, and they might talk, the feature article might talk about, you can say, other background things, you can say. So by talking about the extra, additional informations, the writer, okay, would try to make this story very, very interesting, you can say. This one. Now, when you talk about the structure of a feature writing, it has got simple structure, as I told you, okay, three, it can be divided into three part, you can say, because it has got a lot of freedom, you can say, in selecting, you can say, lead part, and there is no pyramid, inverted pyramid involved as such, So when you talk about, you can say, proper structure, there is no proper structure as such, you can say. It has got only, I would say, 2-3 things, you can say. It can be divided into 3 parts: lead part, you can say, body part, and there is another form which is known as conclusion part. So these are the 3 forms of, I would say, feature, 3 parts of feature. When you talk about type, there are types of feature writings also, like historical features. You can talk about historical features, interpretive features, autobiographical kinds of feature writings, science features, miscellaneous forms of features. So these are different kinds of features. So I think by now you've understood about, you can say, what is meant by feature writing. I've talked about, you can say, the characteristics of feature writings. I've talked about, you can say, the distinction between, you can say, a news story and also feature writing. So I hope that today's lecture has helped you in understanding what is meant by feature writing, you can say. So I would advise you to please go through the booklets of DCE2 so that all these things conceptually become clear to you. So that's it for today. Thank you so much.